Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25 Media. We feature top founders, executives, and business leaders from all over the world.
Chad Franzen here, co-host of the Top Business Leaders Show, where we feature CEOs, entrepreneurs, and top leaders in the business world. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. We help B2B businesses reach their dream relationships and connect with more clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships to get ROI through Done-For-You podcasts. If you have a B2B business and want to build great relationships, there's no better way than to profile the people and companies you admire on your podcast. To learn more, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25media.com. Entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and author Danijel Velicki transformed a difficult childhood in war-ravaged Croatia into his very own American dream as a successful entrepreneur, passionate community leader, and devoted family man. With just $40 in his pocket and an unwavering commitment to designing a successful life that awarded him the freedom to dream big while also providing the very best for his family, he built a rock-solid foundation under his two entrepreneurial adventures, an independent financial and insurances firm, and a financial literacy and wellness platform. Danijel, thanks so much for joining me. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it, Chad.
Hey, my pleasure to speak with you. So as we heard in your introduction, you have quite a story. Tell me a little bit about where you're from and what life was like before you came to the U.S.
It's funny when I talk about this, obviously it's my story, so it's just normal stuff. But when I tell people, they're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So I came from Croatia, and for most people now know that Croatia is just a gorgeous, beautiful, a lot of beaches, just an amazing country. But, growing up there, it was fantastic. And then 1991, we entered a war with Serbia. They invaded us, and, the war lasted for about 4 years. So I was 14 to 18 that the war was there. And it was, all over the place. He was in our cities. He was, in the front yard and backyard. It was everyday life was different. I remember going to school and, having to run to the closest shelter because an air raid started, or, snipers were shooting, and we had to figure out a way to get to safety. So it was an interesting way to live for 4 years, for sure.
Wow. How old were you at that time?
Started when I was 14, and then the war ended August 5th of 95. August 6th was my birthday. And then August 11th, I was on a plane to America as a foreign exchange student.
So when did you decide, or how did the decision to come to America come about during that time?
So we, country of Croatia, even before, it was just one of those places where a lot of stuff is done based on connections, what kind of family ties you have to what kind of places, schools, jobs, or, how much money to bribe somebody to do something. And it's still, kind of like that today. So my dad was an auto electrician, auto mechanic. My mom was a retail worker. We didn't have any money. We didn't have any connections. So I was a 4.0 student in school. And, since I was little, my parents were like, you got to go somewhere where, hard work pays off rather than, who you know or who you can buy. And 2 years prior to me leaving, I had a friend who did a foreign exchange student program in Maine. And she had a great experience. And when she came home in the summertime, I went to my parents and I was like, hey, I would really love to do this. And they were like, absolutely. So we figured out a way to come up with the money for it. And applied for the program. So it was an exchange student program. And I got on a plane August 11th to good old West Virginia. It was awesome.
West Virginia. So what was the plan then? You're on a plane to West Virginia, and what's the plan at that point?
So my parents were, since I was little, pretty much telling me, hey, you need to get out of here, right? You need to go somewhere else. At one point, we were actually looking for me to go to University in Vienna, and actually took a trip there and checked it out and stuff. But then this exchange student program thing came up. So that's the way that we went. So they just said, hey, figure out a way to stay, figure out a way to, not come back. And that was, that's a tough thing to hear when you're 17, 18 years old. But, I was thinking about that since I was a kid. And that's obviously what happened.
And then where did you go to school?
So I went to school in Fairmont, East Fairmont, West Virginia, high school. And, my life is, only in America, as they say, right? So, I hate the fact that people wonder and question whether there's the American dream, idea, does it still exist? And I call up full-heartedly, absolutely live it and have done it. And I know people that are still doing it. So it's just I believe it's still there and strong. I went to West Virginia, did a 1 year in exchange student program. I got, to be 4.0 again, got into all colleges and, had no money, had nothing, but I found out that there was a gentleman, whose father came from Italy and started a little restaurant in Fairmont, West Virginia. So I walked to the restaurant and sat down with Mr. Rocco, and I said, "Hey, you don't know me. I'm from Croatia. We just finished a war. I have a proposition." And he was like, "Okay, what is it?" I was like, "Well, I don't have any money. I really want to go to college. I gave him my acceptance letters to colleges, and I don't have a work permit or a green card or any of that stuff. So would you consider, potentially hiring me and, maybe under the table or whatever, until I get my papers done and stuff. And, I'll cook, clean, paint, whatever. And for you to pay for my school. And then I'll pay you back with whatever I earned and your restaurant." And this man looked at me and said, "Okay." And, took me by the hand to the university, got me enrolled, got all the paperwork done. And I went home to my parents and I said, "Hey, Mom, Dad, I did it. I figured it out. I found a place to stay. He helped me out with that." And, the hardest thing ever was the fact that when I came home, my parents looked at me and said, "Oh, congratulations, but we don't want you to go. We missed you. We really want you to stay and not leave again." And that was probably the biggest, crossroads that I've ever been to at that point. I was 19 years old and I left. I went to visit a friend in Austria, in Vienna. And because I said, "Mom, Dad, I have to think about this." And I walked the streets while she was at work for 3 days. And I finally came to the conclusion that I couldn't live with a what if. What if I do go? What kind of life I could have? What could I do, compared to if I stay? And I came home and, told my parents, "I got to go. I got to figure it out. You've told me this is my goal since I was little. And now I somehow miraculously made it happen. And now you tell me that you don't want me to go." Like, that's just, it was a tough thing to hear. But, so yeah, I came back and went to school.
And they gave you their blessing then?
Blessing is a strong word. They said, "Okay."
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they knew that I wouldn't take anything else as an answer. So yeah,
Sure.
they said, "Okay."
Were you confident that when you asked the gentleman who was starting that business that he would say yes?
No, I was not confident. I just figured that, you miss 100% of shots that you don't take. So I figured I might as well, it was a Hail Mary. I went to talk to the guy that could relate somehow, because his dad still worked at the restaurant. He was there. Frank, he was amazing. So I just, I figured I would ask. The worst thing that could happen would be, he says, "You're crazy, out of your mind. Here's some spaghetti, be on your way," but he didn't. And, till this day, we go there quite often when we go to West Virginia. That's where my wife's family is from. And I thank him every time, just because he gave me the opportunity at a life that I have today.
What kinds of things did you end up doing there?
Oh, seating, waiting tables, busing, cleaning, everything. I worked there for 4.5 years. Never went home. I went home one time when my grandfather passed away. So I, during the summer, I worked 7 days a week. And then my last 2 semesters, I took 25 and 26 hours plus worked 60 hours a week at the restaurant. I closed and, graduated in 3.5, 4 years with double major, and paid him the last bit of money that I owed him that summer, 2000, and paid everything in cash from working at the restaurant.
So you ended up going to Fairmont State while working at that restaurant and taking a
Yep.
massive course load. How did you get all that done?
It's funny. My wife and I lived together at that point, and we still, when I tell my daughter's now in college, right? So she's taking like 16 hours and 15 hours and stuff. And I told her that it took 25 and 26 and still worked full time. And she was like, "How did you do that?" Like, I was busy at 16 hours. I was like, "I don't remember. I just know that I would close, come home at 11, work till 3, and then go to sleep and wake up for the class at 8. And I had, class every day. I had the 8 to 9 to 10, 11. I had the 12 to 3 and 3 to 6. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I worked from 4 to close. Tuesday and Thursday was all day class. And then I worked all day Saturday, all day Sunday, closed those days. So it was just, I would just come home and work and then go to work and then go to class and then work. And there was nothing else to do. That was it.
Sleep was not a huge priority.
Yeah, who sleeps when they're 20? 22.
So you had you were in like you said, you had a double major, I believe, marketing and finance at Fairmont State.
Yeah.
What were your goals when you started there?
So I wanted to be a doctor just because I've been helped so much in my career in the beginning of life. People, it always gets me for clumps just because people are so amazing. At the restaurant, people would beginning of the school year, they would come. I just had regulars because I just did a really good job, and they would give me $100 tips just because they knew I needed to buy books or pay for rent or whatever. And just they helped me so much. So I really wanted to potentially be a doctor to help. And then I figured out how much money I didn't have and how much time that takes and stuff. So then I was like, okay, I thought about it. I thought, okay, what's the second most important thing to people, which was finance. Bad finance can cause bad health from stress and everything. So I switched my major. I was business and marketing, and I switched to finance and just loved it, fell in love with it. And that's where I came out of the college and started in the finance industry right after.
You in many ways you were kind of lucky because you it was kind of serendipitous that you met the guy who was starting the restaurant, but at the same time you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this effort. What about your upbringing do you think helped you realize that? A lot of kids go to college, they don't work, they don't take that much class, and they don't end up doing as well in all those areas.
Yeah. So my parents were amazing, and I hope that I'm half as good a parent as they were. First off, they really built a understanding of responsibility. And when it came to just about everything, when I was 14, I asked my parents, like, hey, can I go out to this nightclub in the city? We lived in the center of the city. And my mom looked at me. She was like, sure, you got to be home at 11:30. So I came home at 11:25. Next weekend, she was like, okay, you can come home at 12. I came home at 10 till 12. And she said, as long as you build the trust, and I know that I can trust you, and I know that you understand that, you'll have everything. But as soon as you break that down, it's gone, and you have to build it up again. So I learned that, what you say is what you do, number one. Second, they were extremely hard workers. My dad, had his own shop. My mom was, the main woman in the mostly men's, world, and she was tough. So I saw them working as hard as they did. And then the biggest thing that really set me the way I lived the rest of my life. So in Croatia, when you are first you have to apply for high schools. So I got into the best high schools, second best high school in Croatia. My best friend would argue that his high school was the best, but they were like 1 and 1.5. But so it was high school for tourism and hotel management. But at any point, a teacher can tell you, hey, Chad, stand up. I got 3 or 4 questions for you, and they'll give you a grade. So it's an oral examination in front of everybody, and it's just as big as a written test. So my name is Velicki, which is at the end of this book that they would carry, right? All the kids would stay together and the teachers would come and go. And, in order to flip to my page, they usually always flip the book and it would end up with M or an S or T, they had to really look for me at the end of the book. Well, this lady came in information technology freshman year, month into the school, and she flipped to my side and said, Velicki, Daniel, stand up. I knew nothing. And I got an F, my first F ever. Came home, was scared to tell my parents. I come home, I tell my dad, he was home. He gave me a hug and a kiss. And was like, you are my son after all. Because he flunked like 5th grade. He went into trade. He hated school. He loved working with his hands. He was an artist. And then I was really afraid of my mom because she was the one that whooped my butt. She was the enforcer at the house. And she came home and said, okay, that's fine. It's yours. And I was like, what do you mean? You're not going to hit me and beat me? She was like, this is high school. This is the rest of your life. Like me and your dad, we have the house, we have the cars, we have our jobs, we have our life. We are fine. You are building your life. So if you want to have Fs and be a, whatever, trash man or, cook, that's totally fine. We're going to love you. You're going to be our son, and your life is going to depend on what kind of decisions you make. If you want to have an A and be a, a boss and a CEO and a business owner or whatever, that's on you. So I'll love you no matter what. This doesn't concern me. This concerns the rest of your life. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, that 2-minute conversation has set me up for exactly how I lived from that point on. It was, but you think about it, we always do stuff for other people, right? Hey, give me this report. Okay, here, I got it for you. Give me, set this up. Okay, I got it for you. It's always like for somebody else. Well, no, it's for us, right? We are the ones that are going to work and do things that are going to benefit us. So as soon as I learned that lesson, which was the best thing that my mom could have ever done, like I've never, ever she never had to worry about anything. I mean, I was always prepared. I was always ready because I knew that any action that I have is going to depend on what the rest of my life is going to look like. So that was huge.
Yeah. Wow. That's an amazing lesson. So you did great. You did great in school. You got a double major. You worked hard for this restaurant, and then you're out of school. Tell me about some of the positions you had before you founded your own business. You received some serious recognition too. Not long
I
before.
did. I was lucky. But I was always taught that when you do something, try to lead, because that's the best place to be, and you're going to go do the most. You're going to learn the most. But I got out of college and I interviewed with a bunch of companies, financial companies up in Pittsburgh area, and I actually quit the finances just because I was just told how I'm going to sell this and I'm going to make this much money and this is what you're going to sell, and this is what you're going to do, and here's a phone book. And I was like, listen, my heart just couldn't do that. I wanted to help people, not sell people. So quit, and I actually moved down to Virginia Beach because I got a job with 7-Eleven as a management consultant. Because I was like, I can't do this. My thought of finance was completely different what the reality was out in the world, what I thought up to that point, what reality was in the world. And then I played basketball at this church one morning, all mornings, and this one guy came up to me and said, hey, where do you work? And I told him, and we talked. He was a little bit older than me. And I was like, hey, let me take your lunch. I'm a financial advisor. I'd like to tell you what I do. And I was like, dude, like I interviewed with all these companies. Like I got my finance degree. I'm good. Like, you're just trying to sell me something. He was like, no, it's different. And this guy was awesome. I'll never forget him. And went to lunch with him, and he took me through this process that was educational. There was multiple meetings. We talked about all this stuff. And not at one point have I felt sold. I felt empowered. And he gave me education on all the options and everything. And I was like, holy crap, I didn't know this existed. This is what I thought finances were. And I went to the company. It's here in Virginia Beach back in 2000. And I was like, I want to work for you guys. And they were like, okay, well, here's a list of 100, numbers, and you got to come up with 100 names. It's called they give you that, any financial company that you start. Well, we just moved to Virginia Beach 6 months before that. So I had 20 people on that list, and I made up 6, because I didn't know anybody. And they came back to me and were like, yeah, we can't hire you. Like, you don't know anybody. You don't have a market. You don't have anybody to talk to. And I begged. And this lady, I still see her around town, and I always give her a hug. Debbie O'Neill, she went to bat for me with the owners. They were like, hey, this kid is different. And I came, and within my first full 12 months, I was the top agent of all the people. I think they hired 22 that year. And, from Croatia, second language, went to West Virginia, and came to Virginia Beach. I was, there for a year, where everybody else was, from Virginia Tech. They were from Virginia Beach, Norfolk, went to, all the colleges and families and everything. But just like I told you, tell me what to do, tell me how to be successful, and I'm the dumb, smart guy. I will just do it. Like, I won't question. I don't need a 26-page business plan. Like, do this and this and this. It's like dance, here's the steps. Go ahead, dumb guys, do it. And I just did that. And that was easy to me,
So you simply took their instruction and overcame whatever you lacked in terms of familiarity with the area or your market that they said you didn't have.
Absolutely. I just did what they told me to do. And that first year, I made one of the clubs that talking about, and there was a guy that was the number one guy in the whole United States, and he was a speaker. And I went up to him afterwards, and I was like, hey, I want to be like you one day. I'm like, could I, come up to your office? He was in New Jersey, and, talk to you, and you can teach me what to do. And he was like, sure. He gave me his cell phone number and stuff. And I called him next week and I was like, hey, I'm the kid that, came up to you and talked to you. It was like, hey, come on Thursday, and, you'll work with me on Friday. You'll see how to run meetings and stuff. I drove up to Paramus, New Jersey, and he had 4 meetings with guys from like, crazy, Wall Street dudes. Did an amazing job. I was in every meeting, went to dinner with him, met his family, spent the night. We talked till 3:00 in the morning. And he told me, it was like, that there was 6,000 people in that room. You're the only one that came up to me, talked to me, and actually showed up and learned this, like wanted to learn how I do it. It was like, out of anybody. And what I learned at that point, he gave me 2 pieces of advice. First off, ask successful people how they got successful, because they will always share it. They all want to tell you, but nobody ever asks and nobody does what they tell you. And second, learn about people, not about selling. Learn about psychology, body language, communication styles, all the, personality types, because for the rest of your life, you're going to be working with people. The more you know them and the more you can communicate the right way, the more they will feel like they're heard, which most people don't. The more you will understand how to listen, and the more you will be able to help them. And it was probably the best advice ever. His name is Jack, up in New Jersey. And he's just I've had so many individuals along the way that have just made such a huge impact on my life. And that's why I'm such a huge believer in mentorship and following. I always follow somebody, because, I always look at it as a my life is a tunnel. I got to where I am because I saw some kind of light to get to where I am, but then there's darkness. And I always try to find somebody that's ahead that can shine the light and tell me how to get there, because they've been there. And I feel like a lot of people don't do that often enough.
Sure. So how and when did you figure out kind of your life's goal or your mission in life? And if you could just tell us what that is, that'd be great.
I was working with a really close friend of mine to write a book for my kids. It was because I would make my kids pancakes, on Saturday mornings, Croatian pancakes, the crepes with Nutella. And my daughter, I think she was 8 at the time. Now she's 18. She was like, hey, how did you come to America? How did you, do what you're doing? And I called my buddy and I was like, yeah, I think he was bugging me for years to write a book. And I did. And as we were talking through the book and, this kind of conversations of where I came from and everything, he was like, it's funny, there's a common thread that I don't know if you recognize. His name is Derek. I was like, no, what is it? He was like, you constantly want to help people. You constantly want to do something for somebody else because you feel like you've been helped so much, which I have. I just named 4 people that have made such an impact in my life that I wouldn't be without them where I am today. And I was like, well, that's probably right. So like, if you look at in the financial field, I love to teach. Like, I don't care what people do, as long as they know what they're doing, that's my success. We got lucky and got into a CrossFit gym because I just felt like, again, human body and wellness and everything was near and dear to my heart. I lost my dad when he was 64 just because he never took care of himself. And I don't want to repeat that, mistake, because I want to be there for my kids. It was like, you help and you teach and you run the gym the right way. You want to make sure that you impact people's lives. And then as I started building Sqwire, and I do the speaking, he was like, you just want to give and want to coach and you want to tell people how to get there because of everything that you've been through. And I always tell people, like, yeah, because if a dumbass like me can do it, anybody can do it. It just takes, a little bit of consistency and persistency and work and, falling forward kind of attitude. But I feel like a lot of people don't think that they can, it's just a do, it's not a think.
Yeah, you mentioned you had a 4,500 foot CrossFit facility for about 6 years. How was that experience for you?
It was amazing. It was the best thing ever. The best friendships that came out of it. We just got, really lucky. And, again, I feel like God puts you in positions to make the decisions if you just listen. And that was one of them for sure. It did amazing things for our family, from understanding what fitness and, good, healthy life looked like for my kids. The owners of the gym were amazing, great weightlifters. Actually Kane was just on the Olympics representing the United States of America. But they were so passionate about weightlifting that they didn't care as much about the business. and they wanted to move to Charlotte. So they were going to close the gym. And I was like, well, I don't want to find another gym. And that's right around the corner. So I walked up to coach and I said, hey, can I buy it? So we don't have to close it. And, there's people that love it and that would love to come here. And he said, sure. And we came up with a number. And I was lucky enough. There was another gentleman in the gym that I approached about being a partner. And he's a police officer in Chesapeake. That's a fantastic guy. So we partnered up and ran the gym. And I can't tell you, when you sweat and you feel like you're going to die, how, bond is formed with so many people, and for them to be there and be a part of that journey. And then we were able to last year transition to a young couple that is extremely passionate about the wellness and what they were going to do with the gym. So it's in great hands, and they're continuing just awesome work. It was one of the best experiences.
So you founded the Opus Group of Virginia in 2010 and then renamed it to Opus Wealth Strategies, LLC in 2017. Why did you decide to start your own company? So one of the things that I found in the financial world is that there's two camps. There's the insurance and investment camp. And insurance people don't like investment people. Investment people don't like insurance people, which both are needed in a situation to be successful when it comes to financial future independence. So I found that to be a very big problem with the industry. So I sought people that thought like me, that, I learned a lot about insurance and investments. There were gentlemen that learned more about the investments and the insurance. And I found two guys that were incredible, Jim and Forrest. And we decided to form the company. And he was very much a macro look at everything that somebody's doing. And I always talk about, that's what Sqwire name from. I was always talk about, medieval times, you knew who had the most money. They had a big old castle. We built the castle, but then they also had a moat so that nobody came in and stole stuff, which is, car insurance and wills and disabilities and life insurance and health and all the things that are needed, but nobody teaches about, right? So we formed the company in 2010 and did great. And then Jim had to move, and Forrest kind of wanted to semi-retire. And then really we renamed the company just because so many people were like, oh, you guys just work in Virginia. We're like, no, like we were clients in San Diego and, all over the place. So I renamed it to Opus Wealth Strategies just because it wasn't geographically kind of, limiting. Mm-hmm. So you're also the CEO at Sqwire, who you've mentioned a couple of times. What does Sqwire do, and why did you decide to create Sqwire?
So, 20 years working with individuals and business owners, I was sitting across from them, and it didn't matter what school they went to, didn't matter how much money they made, didn't matter what kind of degrees they held. If I asked them enough questions, they most of the time had no clue what they were doing financially, and just goofy stuff like umbrella policies or deductible on car insurance or limits on car insurance or wills, which are just I would ask questions that I just didn't know what I was talking about. So I had to teach and teach and teach. And I was like, how is it this, possible that just so many people that are so intelligent, so successful, so great, just don't know? And I did a little bit of research. There's a couple of providers out there that I really didn't care for from the way they did business. So I started writing curriculum for true financial education. And that's the second problem with the whole financial world is everybody's selling something. So a lot of individuals feel like, and again, doing a lot of research for Sqwire development, a lot of individuals feel like, especially if they get into 30s and 40s, that they are embarrassed to ask questions. They're embarrassed to, where they potentially are. They don't want to be sold. They don't trust too many people. And they feel silly that they don't know what they should know. So they just kind of, stick their head in the sand, don't do anything about it, which is a decision in itself, right? So I started writing curriculum that would be allowing people to put themselves in a position of knowledge rather than, being sold. So, that's a position of weakness just because you don't know enough. You don't know what questions to ask. You don't know the options and everything. And then you're depending on a person across from you to either be a good person or a bad person. And they're both, obviously. So really that's what Sqwire was formed. And it's funny, the story that kind of hit it home for me. One of my really good friends, he was a surgeon, fantastic guy, kind of ran the surgery department and stuff. And he took a job of being a CEO of a hospital in a different state. And we had dinner and I was like, John, you love surgery. Like, what the heck are you doing? And he was like, Daniel, listen, you and I love the hugs. And he was my client for a long time. He is. Like, we love the fact that we get to sit across from somebody, tell him it's going to be okay. Right. I get him to fix them. And then I see him in post-op and give me a hug. And like, we can only do that so many hours a day. We're very limited, right? We're technicians. But now I get to go into a hospital, impact the procedures, the systems, the quality of the whole entity, which means I'm impacting the whole community that this hospital touches, which means I'm now impacting thousands of people's lives rather than one at a time. So whenever I started Sqwire, he said, "Hey, you're doing the same thing." Because I love the hugs that we have when you're sitting across from somebody and we're talking about stuff personally. But now I can put it into an organization and I can put it into their employees' hands and members and give them just knowledge that you're not going to be sold, you're going to be empowered, you're going to be put in a place where you understand the things that you need to understand. And whenever the decision comes to do whatever you need to do, you're going to know exactly what it is. You're going to know where to go. You're going to know who to call, and you're going to know what to do. So it's that empowerment piece. But now I can do it on a large scale, and I just felt like a call. Like I just had to do it.
Sure, sure. What type of client would likely benefit from the services that Sqwire provides?
It's the biggest problem and the biggest benefit that we face is that the market is so huge, right? So there's every employer can have Sqwire as an employee benefit for their employees. When I did all the research, I took about 18 months of research, and read all the surveys, read all the results of just reviews and surveys of employees. People lose about $1 trillion a year in efficiency, effectiveness, absenteeism, just because of stress, financial issues, dealing with household, dealing with everything that they're dealing with, especially now since COVID, it's gotten even worse. So, that's true dollars from the bottom line of the employers. If we can just help them to figure things out and set them up right so they don't have to take the days off, they don't have to stress, they can actually, do well. That would save a lot of money and make people better people, but not just employees. It would also make them better fathers, better husbands, better brothers and sisters, to be prudent men when it comes to the financial world that they live in. Organizations, like, we are honored to be a partner with somebody like the Honor Foundation, which are helping the transitioning special warfare warriors to get into the civilian world, and we teach them everything they need to know. So it's such a large market with so many potential people that could use this. Really, so that what we're doing now is teaching that this is something that's available, teaching that it's not expensive, and teaching that it's really something that should be had. But it's quite a large marketplace.
So why are you, I would think that most people who pursue finance degrees, they're kind of just money driven, they're interested in money. You seem like you're more interested in helping people, and money is just kind of part of it. What sets you apart, or why are you that way?
Just, from the genesis of me coming to America and sleeping on people's couches and people giving me $100 tips to be able to, pay for my books, and Rocco taking care of, giving me the shot that he gave me. I've just been helped so much. I feel like I have such a debt to pay to this country and to the people that have taken care of me. And sorry, it's just something that I could do a little part, that I could. I've been, the reason the first company was named Opus is because when we were coming up with a name, we couldn't come up with one. And my wife said, "Well, listen, you're the only person I know that can't wait to get up in the morning on Monday and go to work, because it's not work. You're meant to do this crap. Like, this is your second language." And she knows some of my clients that say that I explained and taught better than most that they've heard before. She was like, "It's not supposed to be that way." I was like, "Yeah, it's like, Mr. Holland's Opus, my life's work, my life symphony." And so the Opus name came from the fact that I feel like, for some reason, I was meant to do this. This is my life's work. I can understand it and tell it and teach it and preach it better than most. And I just felt like there was a higher impact to be done. And I learned early in my career, as soon as I didn't give a crap about the money I made more money. because I just truly care about the outcome for the person I'm teaching and talking to, because I want them, there's nothing like just seeing that aha moment and hearing that, oh my gosh, I finally get it and we're going to be okay. Like there's no price tag to that. There's just nothing. And then being a part of somebody's life and you see all that stuff happening and things that you were working on are coming to realization. If I can do that on a grander scale and be able to give that by way of Sqwire and give that gift to more people, that would be like, you want to talk about a successful life, that would be the ultimate success from my standpoint.
Yeah. Wow. Well, hey, you really have an inspiring story, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Where can people find out? Where can people find out more about everything you have going on?
So, I mean, the website is getsqwire.com, and it's Sqwire. And then my LinkedIn page, if anybody wants to reach out and say hi and chat, I love doing those. But it's just Danijel Velicki, and you can put it up on your thing. It's Danijel. My dad, added the J, which was great. That's the Croatian way of spelling it. I love the people that reach out, and I love anybody that wants to, learn anything that I can teach them. That's, like I said, that's my passion.
Okay. Hey, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Danijel. I really appreciate your time.
Chad, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks. So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25. Visit rise25.com to check out more episodes of the show and to learn more about how you can start your own podcast.